Hello. Today I'm going to review Shopify's built-in Google Analytics 4 or GA4 integration. This integration released just a couple of days ago, and it's available in the Google channel of your Shopify admin. I'm not going to go over how to set this up, but it is fairly simple. You just connect to your Google Analytics account, and if you already have a GA4 property created, you just connect it here. If you don't, Shopify has good documentation on how to create the GA4 property. This integration is okay, to be honest with you. It will work fairly well for stores that don't have a lot of customization, and for stores in particular that aren't using upsells or subscriptions. It will do fine for most of those stores. So we're going to review it, look at the events that Shopify is sending to Google Analytics 4, talk about how that data can be used in Google Analytics a little bit, and things like that. And we're going to review some of the issues and some of the things that are missing from this integration. So let's jump in. Here is the list of events that Google Analytics, that Shopify will send to Google Analytics for automatically. You've got page view, search, view item, and checkout, add payment info, and purchase. There's some uh, events here that Google Analytics 4 has spec'd out for e-commerce that aren't being sent by the Shopify integration. Don't know why, but these are certainly, most of the major events that we would expect to see. So let's jump in. I've got my demo store pulled up here, right? And we're going to walk through those events we just looked at and what they actually look like on your store here, right? So I've got my debugger open. This is a great third-party Chrome extension that's totally free that someone developed. It's my favorite analytics debugger. We'll link to it in our description of the video. So with this popped open, we can see what events are going to be sent to Google Analytics 4 in real time. Now you can see here, I've already loaded the page and loaded up the extension, and you can see that this measurement ID matches the measurement ID that I connected via the Shopify integration. All of these events are being sent by the Shopify integration. I don't have any custom events set up or anything like that. And so, of course, it sends a page view event. Nothing too interesting has happened yet, but let's go through a typical customer journey and see what events will be sent. So first off, I like to point out that Google Analytics 3 events are still being sent. So if you're using Google Analytics 3 still, there's no reason to get rid of it. Some people have said that you have to migrate from GA3 to GA4. Really, they're two completely different products. It's not really migrating from GA3 to GA4. It's not like an upgrade. You can actually run them both in parallel, and I recommend that you do. So keep your GA3 or Universal Analytics integration running. If you're using the default Shopify integration, that's fine. For Universal Analytics, just leave it. Don't delete it. Don't get rid of it. Keep it until July when Google takes it away from all of us, right? And GA4 here is running in parallel, no problem. So definitely recommend you do that. Now, here on this page on the collections, this is where I would expect to send a view items list. Google Analytics 4 has a spec for a view items list event. Shopify doesn't send that one. Don't know why. It's not a super important event. Most stores don't use that to discover anything about their customers or their customer journeys or optimize anything. But if you do, you're going to need to look for a different solution. I know some people use that data to find out how changing the order of collections impacts purchases. So if you do stuff like that, you're going to need a different solution than this. Shopify does send a search event. So when someone searches for a product, it sends that here. So that's nice. It sends both a search, which tells you what the users were searching for, and also it sends a view search results so you can see. So if you're interested in optimizing your search, it does do that. That's really nice. Okay, cool. Let's keep going here. So if I click on a product, of course, Google Analytics, the Shopify will send to Google Analytics for a view item, right? When someone views the product details page of an item, Shopify sends that data over. It does send all of the e-commerce data we expect. So it sends things like their product ID, the price, things like that. You can see those details down here. Right. Now, one thing, there are a few pieces of data that, even though this event is being sent by Shopify, it's not the way we would recommend you send that data. So we'll talk about that when we get over to the actual Google Analytics reporting interface and some of the issues with the data that can be sent over. Okay, it of course sends an add to cart event. You'll notice here that it takes a little bit for this add to cart event to show up in the debugger, but it does show up. That add to cart event also has the same item parameters and everything that you would expect there. We have seen some cases where that item, that add to cart doesn't fire. That can be different depending on the configuration of your store. So you're definitely going to want to look at that in the debugger and make sure that your store is sending those add to cart events, because that is an important event. Okay, cool. This is a view cart, right? Now, most people don't view cart on Shopify store. Usually when you add to cart, people will just like click the checkout, right? So they'll just go add to cart and they'll just go check out right away and they won't view the cart. But there is a view cart event spec'd by Google Analytics 4. For whatever reason, Shopify doesn't send a view cart event. Not sure why. It's very easy to send, but they don't. Watch out for that. It also doesn't send a remove cart event. Again, probably not very important. A lot of people don't look at the remove from cart event very much, but Shopify doesn't send it. So if you use that event, you're going to need to solution. All right, let's keep going here. All right, so let's start the checkout. And you'll see that Shopify does send a begin checkout event with all of the items, right? And it sends the data over to Google Analytics 4 in the way we would expect. That's consistent. Begin checkout tends to be an important event, right? Now, if we just keep going, it doesn't send an add shipping info. So Google Analytics 4 has spec'd out an add shipping info event. Shopify's integration doesn't send that. So you won't be able to see the drop off from like information from adding the shipping info. We won't see how many people dropped off in between information and adding the shipping info. Again, don't know why they didn't do that, but they don't. So if you want to see the sort of full funnel, the full checkout funnel in their GA3 integration, they did have it. Here, they don't. I'm not sure why, but it is what it is, as they say. So I've got a test store, so I'll add in my test data, and we'll take a look at what the purchase event looks like, because this is the most important event for any integration, for any pixel integration. So let's do it. All right, so here's one really important thing. I have set up on my demo store here a post-purchase. This is integrated with Shopify the way that Shopify expects it. So this is the post-purchase page on Shopify, right? And I want to show you, because this is very important. If you use upsells or you use this post-purchase page in any way, then this GA4 integration is just not going to work for you. So you see the last event that fired here was an add payment info event, right? That's great. That's what we would expect, right? But at this point, the way that post purchases work, or upsell purchases like this work, is I have already completed the purchase. I have made the purchase, but you can see here that no purchase event fired, right? So this did not fire. There was no purchase event. That's because the purchase event fires on the confirmation page, which I have not viewed yet. I'm on the post-purchase page, right? That's a real problem because that means if I do what most users do, what most customers will do is they don't accept the upgrade offer and they just close the window. So if I were just to like close the window here, then Google Analytics 4 is never going to get this purchase event. It's not going to see anything about this, right? That's a real problem. So if you have upsells, you basically cannot use this integration. You're going to miss something like 80% of your purchases are just not going to show up in Google Analytics 4 at all. There's another problem where if I do upgrade my order, so let's see what that looks like. I'm going to select a couple different items or one different item and I click upgrade order. Okay. And I'm going to decline the second offer just for the sake of simplicity. And now I've reached the thank you page. And so we can see over here the purchase event fired, right? Now, look at this. There's some significant problems here is you'll see that the Shopify integration did not include the upselled order, right? Look, it says here that the value that it's sending is $20, which was just the original gym shorts I bought, the medium blue, not the gym shorts, not the amount that's actually, being shown properly on the confirmation page. So we're missing half the revenue here. So that's another reason if you do use upsells, you can't use this integration. You need to look for something else. It's just not going to work for you. Okay, everything else looks fine, right? We can see the items are being sent over, right? We can see that it sends the data like the item name and the item variant. We're going to talk about that in a little bit here when we go to the Google Analytics reporting interface. Outside of that upsell event, this looks fine, right? The truth is the only way to send upsell events correctly or to manage upsell purchases correctly is server side, right? We have an article on that, so I won't go into those details here, but you need a server side event if you want to accurately send upsell data. The same is true of subscriptions and refunds. Of course, Shopify fires client side. That means it fires from the actual browser. There is no client side event associated with subscriptions or refunds. So those you need a server side integration to be able to send to Google Analytics 4, right? In general, server side is going to give you much more accurate data. This is a client side integration. And so the data in Google Analytics 4 has just more opportunities for error from a client side integration like this. Okay, cool. So now that we've seen what the funnel looks like, let's see what what the results actually look like in Google Analytics 4. So I'm going to start at the top, right? And I'm going to start with the built-in reporting, which, to be honest, in Google Analytics 4 is a little light. Most of the time, you're going to create explorations. We have separate videos on that. But let's take a look at the data that gets sent over. So first, note that Google Analytics 4 has a 24-hour delay in processing data. So you're never going to be able to see today's data. I made the same set of purchases that I made. I made those yesterday, so we could take a look at them here after the reporting window. So first, here's some of the issues with the way Shopify sends the data over. They include the full item name, so you can see it's gym shorts and dash small blue. Some stores don't mind that at all. That's totally fine. That's the way they like to see this data. But I find that most stores would prefer that this was gym shorts, especially if you have a lot of variants. If you have a lot of products and a lot of variants and you want to know like, hey, I want to know like, how are our gym shorts performing, right? Or, our floral dresses, how are those performing, right? You can't do that without looking at the variant name here. So that's a little frustrating. Would have been better if Shopify just sent gym shorts, right? It would look like this. If Shopify did that, it would look like gym shorts like this. This is the way most people prefer to see their data, and then they can drill into the actual item variants and things like that, right? Shopify doesn't do that. They didn't do it with their universal analytics integration. A lot of people complained about that as well. There's one other issue. You'll notice that Shopify sends, this can be annoying down the road, right? So it actually can be very frustrating down the road, especially as you start to do advanced things with your data, especially if you're using Google Analytics 4's integration with BigQuery. But the item ID here, it sends the product ID. So let's take a look at that here, right? It sends the product ID, which is this, right? For the gym shorts, right? So for the item name, it uses the full name, but for the item ID, it uses the product ID. The problem with that is we can't go backwards, right? We can always find the product ID from the variant ID. So if we're given a variant ID like this, we could find the product ID when we're doing data analysis and stuff like that, because there's a one-to-one relationship. But given the item ID, we can't always find the variant ID. So we're going to be limited in how we can look at the data with the variant to see variant information if we want to do anything interesting or advanced there. Probably not a big deal for just like, hey, we're just getting started and we just want to look at Google Analytics real quick and see what's going on. But is something that can be annoying down the road. And there's no way to correct it, right? Once you only send the product ID, we're never going to know what variant ID this was, right? We can try to back into it with the item name that they have here, but that is what it is. Okay, cool. Other things, right? It does send the item category. That's great. It sends the item brand, which is for most people going to be their store name. So everything else about the way it sends item data looks great. Okay, cool. It does send the item revenue. That's the price, right? The price associated with the item. So that's great. And everything else looks good here. All right, let's go take a look at the purchase data because that is the most important, right? So I've created a custom exploration here to look at the purchase data, right? Now, as I said, I did an upsell purchase yesterday, just like this one. When this one comes through, it will have the same problem, which is you can see here that the e-commerce revenue here that it's reporting is $20. Let's actually pull up that order and look at like what it looks like in Shopify, just so you can see, right? This was made today. Here we go. This is the order, right? So in Shopify, we see that the order value for this was $41.90. Google Analytics is reporting $20. That's that upsell issue. You'll also see here that it reports a quantity of 1, right? That is because it's missing the upsold item, just like we saw when we were going through the live example. It's just another way to say, like, if you've got upsells, you just can't use this integration. That applies generally if you don't use upsells, but you're seeing inaccurate data in Shopify with this Shopify integration. You probably need to look for a different solution because there are customizations you can make to your store that will disrupt the way that this pixel works, right? So if you use something like Global E or alternative checkouts, this integration just like may not work at all for you for purchases. Okay, cool. There's a few things that are more annoying than big problems with this integration, but I just want to flag them for you. One thing is it's the order number. You can see this is the order number here in Shopify instead of the transaction ID, right? Instead of the order ID, which is this part in the URL. It's not a huge deal. It's a little bit annoying because with the order ID, if it did send the order ID like this integration does, right? You can just copy. One thing nice about sending the order ID is you can just copy and paste, and you can go right to the URL like this, and it'll pull up the order in Shopify. That's a nice benefit. It would have been better for them to send the order ID. It is also possible for stores that have migrated from a previous from something off of Shopify that you actually have different you have different transaction IDs, order IDs, different orders that have the same order number. It's possible in some rare cases. So it would have been better if they had sent the order ID instead of the order number, but it's not a big deal, right? Now, there is one thing that is a big deal here, right? And that is that Shopify is not sending the user, sending the customer ID, the Shopify customer ID, along with the order. It should be sending the customer ID as the user ID to Google Analytics 4. The reason why that's important is we're not going to Google Analytics 4. If I made this purchase yesterday on my iPhone, right, and then I came back today and I made another purchase on my desktop, because we're not sending that customer ID to Google Analytics 4, Google Analytics 4 is going to assume that those two purchases were made by different people, right? Even though in Shopify, of course, Shopify knows that this is the same person because I have the same email address. It knows that I'm the same customer, right? So this customer ID here that you see here really should be sent as the user ID to Google Analytics 4. You can see that it's not because it says the user for these transactions was not signed in with a user ID. That is going to disrupt some of the new features that are available in Google Analytics 4, namely this user acquisition channel, this user acquisition report. The user acquisition report is a new report. It's a new way of attributing users in Google Analytics 4, wasn't available in Universal Analytics, which is its first touch, right? So if I came from a Google ad yesterday and I made a purchase, and then I came from a direct or a Google organic search today and I made another purchase, the user acquisition report would show that Google ad would take credit for both of those purchases. My traffic acquisition report would show that the first purchase came from a Google ad and the second purchase came from a Google organic search. But because Shopify is not sending the customer ID as the user ID into Google Analytics 4, if I made those purchases on different devices like my phone or my desktop, then Google Analytics 4 is going to say that second purchase, the user acquisition, the first touch for that second purchase was actually Google organic when it should be Google CPC. That's a big problem, right? It really should be sent that way. So if you're interested in using first touch as an acquisition, if you're really interested in looking at your first touch or your user acquisition report like this, and you want to make sure that it's accurate, you're going to need a different solution than what Shopify has built in here for you, right? That sort of rounds out the review of this integration. Like I said, it's an okay integration. It works fine for people who just want to get set up and going really quickly and they just want to rely on sort of the default stuff. That's totally fine. If you don't have a lot of customizations, if you are upsells, things like that, it probably works fine. If you are looking for something else, of course, we recommend our free app, which doesn't have some of these problems that we've talked about here. In particular, we do send the customer ID and we do handle upsells because we fire server side, right? But other than that, hope you find this review useful, and feel free to leave comments or questions, and we'll see if this Shopify's integration gets any better over time. Thanks.